want to try and make this as concise as possible and get as much answered as we can. In addition to what SAG-AFTRA has put out on their SAG strikes. Let me find it. I'll find what it is. SAG-AFTRAStrike.org, and I will make sure that gets in here. So first of all, before we start, thank you all. My name is Tim Friedlander, president and founder of NAVA, the National Association of Voice Actors. We are joined today by Zeke Alton, who is here as a SAG-AFTRA member, and he is here to answer questions for us. He was on the SAG, on the negotiating committee. He is not here as an official representative of SAG-AFTRA. If you have any specific questions regarding that, there is a whole communications department that can help answer some of these questions, but he is here as somebody who has been intimately involved in this negotiations and can help us answer some factual questions about what exactly is struck, what is not struck, what this means for people as we work our way through this. Thank you. SAG-AFTRA Strike is in there, and questions, I'm going to drop the link again into the Google chat, or sorry, the Google link, so that everybody can.
And Tim,
questions. Yes.
This is Zeke. I will do my best to explain to you why things are struck and not struck, and why we are at the decisions that we have come to.
Great. So why don't we let's get started. We got people coming in. This is recorded, so we can go through that. So if you want to give us a quick little overview, Zeke, on this, and then we'll jump into some of the specific questions that we have. SAG-AFTRA does have a really solid graphic about the contracts that are struck and not struck. NAVA has put together a specific voiceover one that speaks specifically to what that means from the voiceover side of things. Zeke, go ahead and jump into this. So once again, so let me just clarify. So NAVA is, we have not been involved with SAG-AFTRA in this. We are not part of the negotiating. NAVA is here just as an information for the voiceover community. We have not been in the room. Zeke has been in the room as an elected member of SAG-AFTRA on the negotiating team. So he is here to speak to us from that perspective. He, again, is not speaking as a representative of SAG-AFTRA, but he is here to give us all the information that we need to know. If you'd like more information on NAVA itself, you can go to navavoices.org, and all of the information on how to join and everything is up there. So Zeke, take it away, my friend.
Okay, here's the Cliffs Notes. So this year, the WGA was negotiating their main contract, the writers. The DGA, the directors, were negotiating their main contract. And then lastly, SAG-AFTRA, the actors, were negotiating our main contract. When we say main contract, it's something we call the CBA, the Codified Basic Agreement. It is the agreement between actors and producers that covers television and film. Television and film for all producers that are part of what's called the AMPTP, the Association of Motion Picture Television Producers. That is a bargaining unit that bargains on behalf of entities like Amazon, Apple, Paramount, Universal, Netflix, and all of those people to set the terms on how actors do their work. So what happened was they bargained with the WGA, and the WGA went on strike because the AMPTP wouldn't consider reasonable demands. Then the directors negotiated, and the directors came to a deal. And then we started negotiating. We negotiated for 35 days straight. We worked weekends. We managed to get the 4th of July off because we worked all through the 2nd and 3rd of July, and all of the proposals were on the other side's table for that day. So we actually got a day off. We worked all the way up until midnight, the night that the contract ran out, and then decided that they had not come far enough towards us that we could continue negotiating in good faith, because further extensions would have just hurt the writers more. So we decided that it's time to go on strike. So we are on strike right now. You are still represented by the negotiating committee, and that is 36 or 38 actors who volunteer for that committee, along with the contract staff and the legal staff and all of those other staff that support us in the room. We are ready to start talking again anytime the AMPTP wants to talk, but that's really up to them. Until then, we are on strike, and we'll discuss what a strike means. It means essentially that you can't work that contract until they come back to the table. We continue to bargain, and we come to a deal. Make no mistake, at some point, we are going to come to a deal. This strike, just like the strike authorization vote, is just another point of leverage for us to make sure that they meet our demands in a reasonable fashion. And with that, what do you got for me?
All right. So this does not apply to, let's just start with some what we've seen a lot, questions that have been asking. This does not apply to all union jobs under every union contract, correct?
That is correct. I know that
Yep.
mostly what we have in the room here is voice actors. I myself am primarily a voice actor. And so the TV theatrical contract covers feature movies and network and cable television. What that means for voice actors basically is looping on TV shows or features that are done by AMPTP companies. Looping is referred to as ADR. So let's not get that mixed up with dubbing. Dubbing is a different kind of ADR. It's localizing ADR. What we're talking about in this contract is automatic dialogue replacement of your own lines and of original work done by loopers. It also covers network feature in animation. So like an animated movie that's going on Netflix is new media. It's not feature. So that's a little bit weird there. So animated series for TV, basic cable, and new media are not covered into this contract. And the last thing is trailers. Network trailers are covered into this contract. So as you can tell, it's not a whole lot of voiceover work that's struck.
And in regards to that, does that cover voice matching as ADR? Is voice matching followed in that contract?
Yes, if it's done under normal looping rules for TV and film.
Tim, I think you're muted.
Oh, wrong button. Yep, wrong way. So sorry, let me jump up to the Google Doc. And I'm going to jump in with something that has been asked a few times in various different areas. How does this relate to conventions? I was on a meeting yesterday about this, so I can answer as well to what you had. Specifically in this case, San Diego Comic-Con, there's lots of different views on this. How does this relate specifically to conventions?
So there are different views, but there are also rules. And so I'll explain the rules. If you look at the strike order, it's not well written because it's written in a very specific way. When we release a strike order from the union, there is a legal strike order that has to come out, just as there is a legal motion that has to be passed through the board. Those are written in legalese. As you can see, after that, we started to put out layperson information that actually tries to state it in English. So one of the things that are struck on this contract is all promotion of work that is done under this contract now, in the future, and in the past. So you cannot go promote anything for any network or any show for any network that's covered by the AMPTP, any show that's new or any show that's old. And we've already started to see the AMPTP try to bring up like reunion cast panels and stuff. None of that is acceptable. Now, what you can do is go to any convention if you're signing things for yourself or if you're going for another purpose. I myself, in conjunction with NAVA, am going to San Diego Comic-Con to speak about AI in the entertainment industry. There's no connection between our panel and the AMPTP. So that's allowed. If you're gonna, if you are famous for characters and you wanna go and sign for those characters, you should be okay as long as you're not going at the behest of a studio or going for a specific studio project. Now, all that being said, if you have any questions, all it takes is a quick email to SAG-AFTRA STRIKE@SAG-AFTRA.org, and they will answer your very, very specific question. There's going to be some leeway here, but we have already seen lots and lots of different studios try to find end arounds and loopholes to do their panels. So that's why SAG-AFTRA's got a good eye on it.
Great. David, did you want to add to that? Anything to add to that one? David H. Lawrence?
Yeah. I would, everything everything Zeke said, but I would err on the side of caution when it comes to your characters, especially if you have graphics that show a scene or a still frame from something that you've done.
Yeah.
I have a huge thing that I got made at FedEx office that I put up, and not going to use it this year because it's clearly from a show that I was in. And so, yes, use the email address. There's a fairly clear approach to it on the strike site in that PDF file. And so the whole point here is not to, as has been mentioned several times, stop our production partners at the AMPTP from making any money, but make it clear through our actions that we're the reason they're making that money. And so promoting anything that you've done in the past, anything that you're doing currently. I have a show coming out on Apple TV Plus that I can't promote. So you just do it. You just, you pay attention to our goals and all the hard work that Zeke and everybody else on the negotiating team has put in. And if there's any question about it, reach out to SAG-AFTRA, as Zeke said.
And one of the other things that was brought up yesterday in this meeting is also be aware of, at the Comic-Cons, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but this is brought up, and this was specifically brought out in the SAG-AFTRA meeting yesterday, is be careful where your photo is taken, that you're not in front of, you don't have a photo taken in front of an advertisement for another show. So that was a really interesting thing that I hadn't really thought about, is you're at a convention and if all this material is around there, you have to be aware of where your photo is taken, that you're not in one of those things. So awesome.
I would go further than that. There's a little added wrinkle that we're starting to see now. If you want to go to film festivals and you have an indie film or something like that that you're promoting that is either waived or is okay and free from the strike, be aware that some of these festivals are going to start to be sponsored by Max or sponsored by Warner Brothers, and then they're going to put their logo on the step and repeat. We're seeing them trying to do that now. So you really need to be aware of what you're stepping into when you're doing promo for your stuff. Just keep an eye on it.
Great. And one thing I didn't clarify at the top of this is that this meeting is for everybody, union, non-union, FICOR, pre-union. NAVA is open to everybody, and we are here to get this information out to the voiceover community specifically. So even if you're not in the union, and this is going to come up in some of these questions, this strike has ramifications on you and the work you do, and as well.
If you are an actor in any way, this is about you.
Yes. Yep. Great, awesome. Thank you, David. Anything else you wanted to add to that? I think that answers our convention question for that. So somebody asked to clarify, so I can continue to, so to be clear, I can continue to produce a character and market it to Netflix Prime for possible project creation. I'm not sure if this is the right, I'm not sure if we're the right ones to answer that, because that sounds like you'd be on the production or creation writer side of things. I guess if you're a writer, that would be struck.
You can keep doing your own work if you want to, but it's just, you should always be sitting at your desk creating wonderfulness, but it's
Right.
not something that and a lot of people are direct messaging me with questions. Please use the Google Doc so that everybody can hear your question and everybody can hear the answer.
Yep. And I'm going to drop that again in the Google Doc. We'll keep trying to drop that in there as well. I don't think there's any way for me to pin that, is there? I can't pin the actual, no, I
I
can't.
don't think so, but I'll keep dropping it in.
Cool. Carl, keep dropping it. I just dropped it. So let's jump into some of these. Zeke, anything else you'd like to jump to clarify before we jump into some questions? Okay. So I'm just going to start at the top here. This comes from Matthew, the NAVA secretary is here as well, so he can keep doing that. And everybody's dropping the Google Doc in there. It's great. Yeah, if you can use the Google Doc, that'll be easier than getting some chats, getting things lost in the chat. So jumping into the top, this is from Laura Welsh. And if you would like to be anonymous, just put anonymous in there. That's totally fine. So are auditions for SAG-AFTRA contracted shows also supposed to stop, or can we continue to audition but just not work on those? So can you still audition for Disney, Nickelodeon, etc.?
Nickelodeon is not included. Nickelodeon has its own agreement, and it's not included in the Nickelodeon animated shows.
That is correct. So Nickelodeon animated shows are either under new media or the basic cable animation contract. Neither of those are struck. Live action shows on Nickelodeon are under the Uptown contract, which is under the net code, which is also not struck. However, anything that is struck, so a Pixar feature, a Disney feature, those are struck. And no, you cannot audition for those.
Right.
You can still audition for video games. You can still audition for animated series that are new media. You can still audition for all of that stuff.
And while we're on that, these other contracts that are not struck, you not only can work on them, you should continue to work. SAG-AFTRA is not asking you to stop working on all union work, even to as a show of solidarity. This is some things that I saw last night, correct? Zeke?
And let me tell you why.
Yes.
We have, unfortunately, no strike clauses, which means that we cannot do solidarity strikes. So it looks a bit like an unfair labor practice, which gets the CBA negotiations into murky water if there's a feeling out there that people are trying to break no strike clauses on their behalf. Second, we are well aware that people gotta earn.
Right.
They gotta make money and they gotta eat and they gotta get rent. Go get that where you can. Understand that what we're doing in the CBA and what we're striking is going to hurt them. It's going to hurt us, and it's going to hurt all the people that are attached to the entertainment industry a lot, but it's going to hurt them more. And when their share price starts dropping, action will be taken.
Cool.
I want to add something for the non-union and FICOR people that are here, because there are lots of questions here asking what can non-union and FICOR people do in order to help? And the answer is, do not audition for these projects. What we saw in the commercial strike and the video game strike is that a lot of jobs that used to be union then turned non-union to avoid the strike. This is such a small amount of voiceover work. You can do literally every other genre except TV, film, and trailers, pretty much. If we can all just stand together and decide that we will all collectively as a group just not do those jobs that we know really should be under the union contract, and now they're kind of turning non-union so they can get more actors, then we will be in a place to help those who are striking, who are SAG-AFTRA members. This is about all of us. And a lot of people might think like, oh, well, here's my opportunity to be like the lead in a new Netflix animated series or something. No, don't do that. Don't do that. And in fact, SAG-AFTRA has come out and said that if you work outside of the strike, you will not be able to become a member of SAG-AFTRA later. So just keep that in mind. Stand with your colleagues. Such a small amount of work that we're talking about. Do all of the other work you want, but these contracts, just don't do them. Don't audition.
And for those who are non-union, you are welcome to please, actually everybody, union, non-union, FICOR, pre-union, you're welcome to join NAVA and help support voice actors as an entity. And NAVA is union, non-union, FICOR, pre-union members. So please join us there. You can find all the info on our website, navavoices.org. So let's move on. This was kind of answered in that from Rebecca Davis. How does this affect VO work in trailers and promos for film, network TV, and streaming?
Okay. Network television promos are covered under the net code, not struck. Film promos and film trailers are covered under TV theatrical. That is struck. Cable promos have never been covered. They are non-jurisdictional, not struck. That's as simple as I can put it. If you find that you have an audition and you have a question and you're not getting a response from SAG-AFTRA strike at sagaftra.org, send me an Instagram.
Actually, Karen, can you put that email address on the Google Doc? The strike email address, we'll put that up there. So Rebecca, hopefully that answers your questions on there. Moving on. So this is from Astrid. Is there going to be a point person we could ask if we wanted to make sure we didn't accidentally work on something we shouldn't? That would be
there is an army of them.
Yes.
We have multiple. We know we're going to get a million questions, so we have staff set aside to look at that SAG-AFTRA strike at sagaftra.org email to answer all those questions as rapidly as possible.
Great.
Now,
yep.
I want to point out that the union is doing this in solidarity and to stand strong. The union is not looking to come after people who make a mistake. We understand that people got to work, that people got to make a living, and that we're not striking everything. So ask up front. If you're really, really confused and you feel like you've made a mistake, we're not going to come and burn you down for that.
Great. And hopefully these types of events, the things that NAVA is going to have on our website will help clarify that, so we can hopefully avoid that confusion up front. Let's see. So that answers our point person. How can non-union members support SAG-AFTRA and WGA strikes?
Come to the pickets. It's hot.
Yeah.
There's
you get
free
out there
food.
live.
There's water. You'll meet all your favorite actors and writers.
Engage with everybody, ask questions, see what you can do. There's lots of things that you may possibly be able to do in your community or your area. Just, sharing this information as much as possible. I think showing, even just continuing to show support and solidarity for this, publicly as you're doing this, is something that you can do. I think, one of the things that is important, and Zeke touched on this, is that everybody's welcome to join the picket lines. We're not saying you're not in SAG, so you can't join us in this fight, right? I'm a SAG-AFTRA member. I'm also founder and president of NAVA. I'm on both sides. Not on both sides. I am a part of this whole community, which includes union, non-union, FICOR, pre-core, pre-union members. So this is something that we can all do. You are welcome to be out there on those picket lines. Get out there and go and join that if you can. All that information's on the SAG-AFTRA strike website.
And the other thing is sharing on social media as much as possible. That doesn't even require you to get in your car or do anything, but just sharing the information about the strike, why it's important. All of you have communities way beyond actors. And those are the people that we need to reach. The biggest noise that we can make will have the biggest impact. So social media sharing as much as you can so that it's in everyone's minds.
And I would say factual social media sharing as well. Zeke, make sure we know what we're sharing.
In the vein of that, there has been a question asked that happened in the past. So in the past, SAG-AFTRA made some concessions for easier access into union membership for pre-members, non-union folks who came out to support the picket lines and strikes. We have not done that right now. And I'll tell you why. The reason is we don't want to create a false perception that the union is trying to sway the public or sway the numbers on the picket line. But as this strike goes on, if it extends and becomes protracted, there's always the possibility that the union might offer concessions to non-union folks who are really out there supporting their union and make it easier for them to get in. So let me restate that again to be clear. That is not on the table right now. It has happened in the past, and it may happen in the future, but it's always good to show solidarity for the union in the area that you want to work.
Awesome. Moving. Okay, so that answers our non-union support. Hopefully that helps. And if you have any questions, you can email. You're always welcome to email us through the website, navavoices.org. You can reach me or Karin or Matthew or anybody through there. We can do that. Karin, I'm gonna add you here because I'm gonna add you as co-host so you can let people in this room. I keep popping over to try and have people in the room and ask questions as well. So moving on, Alexis has two questions. I think one of those is, I'll clarify, Alexis, if you wanted to just drop in the chat or pop on for a second. How does this affect indie and such? So basically, if it's an indie, if it's not under these contracts, you're fine, correct? Right? I mean, if it's not an AMPTP.
If you look at the strike order, which unfortunately I don't have right up in front of me right now, all of the TV theatrical contracts are struck.
Yep.
The reason that is because we don't have an agreement on the main agreement. So the offshoot agreements, like the moderate budget, the low budget, the ultra low budget, they take all of their terms from the larger agreement. So all of that immediately became struck at midnight. Now, all of that work, the national board got together and voted that we want to continue to let indie producers and developers make their films. So all you have to do is submit a waiver request to the union. And again, we set aside a bunch of staff to go through and write those waiver requests. And work will be done essentially under the contract terms that the union currently has on the table. Does that make sense? So we've been negotiating and we've been countering back and forth on terms. And the last terms that we put on the table will be the basis for the waiver for low budget, moderate budget, and ultra low budget. Now, when you're talking about micro budget, you're talking about short project, and you're talking about student, those are separate promulgated agreements, and those are cleared hot right now.
Just for clarity, can you
Sorry, what does that mean?
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
what
can you
does that
define
mean?
exactly?
Sorry, military terminology.
Promulgated. What do those words mean?
Okay, so there's a difference between negotiated and promulgated agreements. We have both types at the union. A negotiated agreement is where our side, the actors, sits down with the other side and hashes out terms and agrees and signs on the bottom line for 3 years normally. And then everything made under that next 3 years is done under that term contract. A promulgated contract is a contract that the union gets together among ourselves and sets the terms ourselves and then puts it out there. And anyone that wants to work with SAG-AFTRA actors needs to sign on to those terms. So if you want to make a student agreement and you want to use SAG-AFTRA actors, you find the student agreement and you sign it. You don't get to bargain your own terms as a developer or producer. You just sign the terms that the union has promulgated.
Great. David, did that answer? Was there more?
Well, he still hasn't said, what does that military term mean? Yes or no?
It means yes.
For indies.
Sorry.
Great, thank you.
Great.
Apologize for that. Cleared hot means yes.
Cool. And I'm just, I'm still trying. I think look, everybody's muted. I keep muting. Some people get unmuted. I will make sure we mute you again. Okay, great. And then Alexis, the graphic was seriously difficult to understand. Are you talking about the 3 or 4 page SAG-AFTRA graphic they put out that said the ones that said you can work on this, but you can't work on that?
Yeah, it's 4 pages. It's not ideal. The Strike Communications Committee is at work right now. They're not on the lines because they're back in the office working on putting out clearer graphics and a clearer message that's not in legal terms.
And we have
we have created a document that we will put on our website today that is specific to voiceover, that tells you in very clear terms, don't work on this, this, and this. You can work on this, 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 and this, and everything else. So that'll be up on our website later today. I think we all signed off on it, so it just has to be put up there.
Yeah,
I give it the thumbs up.
Great.
It'll be up there then. Moving on. Are the same people, the same team from the AMPTP negotiating with everyone? For example, does our union and WGA have to wait on each other to negotiate, or are there separate teams for each of these?
It is the same team. So the WGA was unable to negotiate while we were actively negotiating. I think technically they can do dual negotiations if they split their team up, but they choose not to. And the reason that they choose not to is because they want to leverage one union against the other. It was a dream for the AMPTP to get the DGA to sign, because ever since then, they've been trying to leverage both the writers and the actors and say, well, they took the deal. Why don't you take the deal? That's called pattern bargaining. We have done that in the past, but we're aware that the things that satisfy the directors are not necessarily the things that satisfy actors. So we've rejected a lot of pattern bargaining this time around, and we're bargaining what's best for us.
Cool. Awesome. So then the same negotiators for the AMPTP have been talking to everybody. It's that same team is the one negotiating with WGA. They're the ones who came up to that agreement with the DGA, and they're the ones who are negotiating with SAG-AFTRA. Okay. And
they are led. So the AMPTP is a separate law firm that represents all the companies. So all the company lawyers are in the room, and then the third party, very highly paid AMPTP lawyers are in the room, and they are led by a lawyer named Carol Lombardini.
Okay, great. Moving on down, what are identifiers of struck work? Will our agents filter this type of work, or do we have to double check before auditioning?
I would always double check to care for yourself, but the agents had a meeting with the staff of SAG-AFTRA. The staff of SAG-AFTRA met with the agents, they met with lawyers, and they met with publicists all separately to explain to them what was going to happen during the strike. That agent meeting had well over 300 agents there. So they know. And so they should be looking out for your best interests. But let's face it, in this world, always read it twice.
Read the contracts, read that, double check, clarify. Katie Lee did drop some information she received from her agent, which is up there, which I just looked through it. I looked through it clearly, and it appears to be, looks like it has the information we want. Okay, so that was answered. Anonymous, if we want to join the union, can we still do that at this time, or do we need to wait until the strike is over to join?
No, you can do it right now. If you are solely a video game and dubbing actor, that work is not struck. You can join the union and keep on trucking, doing what you're doing.
Great. I think we've clarified the convention, so we're gonna move past that one. Oh, actually, yeah, this has been asked actually a few times in the chat as well. How can we stay apprised of where and when the picketing is happening so we can join? It's on the SAG-AFTRA Strike website, correct?
So on the SAG-AFTRA Strike website,
I'll link
we are
it.
going to be at a lot of the same strike locations as the writers. I mean, we've been walking with the writers for 70 something days now. But I think we're going to further expand it. I do want to touch on one brief thing. We are picketing. There's a definition to picketing that's different than protesting. So there are rules under labor law about different places that you can picket and different places that you cannot picket. When you get to the picket line, there's a sign-in table, and every picket line and I think every gate has what's called a strike captain. That is a union member whose job it is to let everybody know the rules, make sure we're obeying the rules. There are specific labor rules for picketing. You can't stop someone's car. You can't picket a neutral gate. There's all kinds of things like that. So all of those rules will be on SAG-AFTRA Strike at sagaftra.org. A lot of us in NAVA are going to be posting that stuff as often as we can on social media. So that's where you're going to find all that information.
And it was dropped in the chat, and it is public information. So Courtney asked if it was public
Correct.
information. That is
It
public
is.
information. So you are
The reason,
go join, right? Anybody's welcome to join.
yeah, the reason I separate strike picketing from protesting is there are places where you can go and protest where it's not actually legal for us to picket. Like we can't go picket Disneyland, even though we're striking against Disney, because that is not an entity that creates the content that we're striking. You can go protest Disneyland if you want, but picketing is not allowed. So no t-shirts, no signs, no SAG-AFTRA is here, no none of that. Just an example.
Hey, Tim.
Yes, David. Yeah, what's up?
Yeah, also, when you go and picket, please pay attention to neighborhood signage and proper parking, and the list even includes places that have restrooms that you can use. Be nice, be respectful. The people that are in these neighborhoods, it's not their fault that we're having this issue. So be gentle with them and be gentle with the neighborhoods. There's no reason to, you know, I know at Warner Brothers, if you go to the Whole Foods building, there are signs up, no parking for strikers. And that's a reaction to what may have happened in the past. So just, you know, be respectful of the neighborhoods that these places are in.
Absolutely, 100%. Striking is a tool that we use to get the public on our side. If we trash their neighborhood, we're not getting the public on our side.
Tim's muted again.
Yep. Sorry, I was reading it. I had texts and emails all come through at the same time as well. All right, moving on down. So Art's got yours question answered. Moving to the question about toys. So does this have any impact on toy play type products, typically non-union, that aim to promote or sell a toy that is connected with a broadcast television character? So if it's connected with one of these productions. I believe not, but
it doesn't affect the work because it's a separate contract if there is a contract, but this is one of those awesome examples of, do you want to promote that product? And at this point in time, I'm sure Zeke would jump in with, you know, whether he agrees with me or not. I would not do that work.
Oftentimes merchandising is covered in the riders of the broadcast and network stuff that you do. So you sign on to a cartoon, and in the rider, the addendum to your contract, it has provisions about merchandising. So that is actually work that you're doing under that contract. And so the point of the strike is to stop them from making money. So if they're making money off of toys on the covered work that you did, that is stuff that needs to stop.
And that was kind of one of the things they said yesterday in the meeting, is that kind of a good thing to look at is if your promotion will help one of these truck companies make a profit or make money off of it, that would be something that you would not want to be. So that kind of where the convention comes in, where the toys come in as well, is if it's something that would make profit for one of the truck companies, that is something you'd want to stay away from. Karen, do you mind asking a couple of questions? On there?
I would love to.
I got to answer an important email here real quick.
Yes, I got you. Okay, so a lot of the names of these agreements are confusing to people and we don't understand what they mean, right? So the strike notice order states low budget theatrical agreement, moderate low budget project agreement. This seems contradictory to what Zeke said. I don't know what this means, actually. All of those things are banned. So yes, all right, Zeke?
I don't understand the
I
question.
don't understand the question either. I think this person is saying, Callie Bliss is saying that you said that that those things are not banned, but the order says they are banned. I was
They
under the
are-
impression
okay,
that you
so
said they are banned.
They are struck, but the union has voted that they will waiver all projects that are not making money for the AMPTP. So if
Okay,
you
so
were,
can
I was
get a
shooting
waiver.
I was shooting a film under the low budget agreement 2 weeks ago, and they were desperate to get wrapped before the strike hit. And the reason was, when the strike hit, even though they were a low budget, they were not produced by the AMPTP, they were going to have to stop their shooting schedule, submit a waiver to the union, receive that waiver in order to continue their shooting schedule.
Thank you.
Now, we ain't waiving anything for the AMPTP.
Right. That makes sense.
Cool. And the Google Doc.
And the reason why, and again, I'll explain logistically, the reason why is the old contract is struck. So those contracts are offshoots from the main CBA. So we're not working that contract anymore. So the only thing that's up to date is what we currently have on the table. And so those indie productions are going to have to agree to a waiver that says you have to work under the terms that we currently have on the table. So if we have a 10% wage increase, when you start up again, your actors need to now be paid with that 10% wage increase.
Cool.
We are going to end up with more questions out of this than I think than answers. So we'll do our best to keep answering these.
I am going to actually delete the rows of questions that we've asked so far so that we don't have a long list of
Yeah.
rows.
Okay. Can we save those somewhere too as well? Maybe
You want to save them?
I'd like to save them because I'm getting
okay,
a Google
never mind.
Doc error that says we're at capacity on the Google Doc as well. The sharing, we broke Google, everybody.
We broke
Google.
internet.
Yeah, you can hide rows. Maybe we can just hide those for now. We can do that as well. We can hide those. So I'd like to have these to reference.
It's all right. I'll just leave it.
Okay, cool.
We'll
This is
just
being
scroll.
recorded, so we can go back and reference that. Okay. So
Is there any expectation for animation unions to join the strike?
either on the writing.
I assume that either the writing or the animators. I assume that's what you mean.
That's a good question, and I don't know. We have talked with the animation guilds. We talk every day with the WGA. So this is not, we are striking at the same time, but this is not a joint strike, just so we're clear on the terminology. I'm not sure legally if anyone can join us as part of a joint strike.
Cool.
But anybody can show solidarity.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
We already answered the next question. We put the strip picket line
Oh, sorry. Yes.
striking list.
Yep.
Oh, a list of the studios that we're striking against.
The exact studios, followed by wait. So Netflix isn't clear. I'm confused now. So it's
Okay, so this is where it gets weird. Okay.
Yep. Okay.
We signed a single employer agreement with Netflix several years ago. And then Netflix decided they wanted to join the AMPTP. So we continued with the Netflix agreement at sort of in parallel to the regular CBA. Now that Netflix has fully joined the AMPTP, they have been invited in and they are now currently negotiating with us with the AMPTP. So over time, what it does is it causes the contracts to essentially merge into one. Now, there are aspects of new media that Netflix does that are outside the main contract. I hope that makes sense to everybody.
So Netflix as a whole depends on which contract that Netflix production is being done under.
Correct.
Okay.
For example, Netflix dubbing has its own contract, and so
Correct.
that's not included. And then
Okay.
Netflix also has other, so it just depends.
Yeah. So I think so it seems to be, and if maybe I'll try and just wrap my brain around this. It seems to be less about the company that is on that list and more about the contract they are specifically using for that job.
Correctamundo. So
Okay.
like you
Great.
can work for Disney if you're doing a video game or you're doing a dubbing project, but you can't work on a Disney movie.
Okay.
Hey, Tim,
Yes, sir.
this little micro conversation is a clear example and illustration of much of what we are concerned about in these negotiations. The turns that have happened in how things are produced, how things are distributed, how things are consumed by the viewers and the listeners is exactly what we're worried about in the future. It used to be great. You had broadcast and you had cable. That was it. It was how things were distributed. That's how our contracts were oriented. Now everything's distributed over TCP/IP. So it's not about that anymore. It's about how things are being consumed and at what pace they're being consumed. And one of the biggest things that we're talking about is clarity and transparency in just how much is being done. You know, we have these lists that show top 10 shows, but not numbers, and no numbers that we can rely on. So just know that these confusing conversations about what contract is this under, how is this being consumed, is this owned by an AMPTP member, those are the very things that are contributing to our struggle in this particular negotiation. Would you agree with that, Zeke?
100%. And I'll double down with you. All of these really conflicting and complicated provisions are put in by the companies. We are trying to simplify in this negotiation the contract, and they're rejecting all of our simplifications because they know if they keep it complicated, they can make it really, really hard for us to understand what's going on.
And then just to clarify, TCP/IP, you're talking about basically over the internet, David, right?
Yeah, it's all being distributed. Everything that we get now, it used to be, oh, that contract, yeah, that's covered under new media because it's being delivered by the internet. Well, there's very little now. If you've got Uverse, if you've got DirecTV's local editions, if you've got some other way of getting your information, and of course, all the streamers, all the set tops, you know, that's all being delivered by the internet. So it's not about delivery anymore. It's about exploitation and consumption. So.
Melissa, maybe we can clarify this for Melissa. There's a San Francisco event today that starts in 10 minutes, but only appears to be open to members. Do we know any? Is it a picket?
SAG-AFTRA members you're talking about?
Yeah, Melissa, is that what you're asking about? And maybe we can yes. And is it a picket, Melissa?
Or it's a Zoom?
Or is it a
Hi, hold on a second. I just lost the page.
No problem. Welcome.
It says that they are starting at noon, I think, at where the office is, and then they're marching to the cable car turnaround and taking a photo.
Okay.
Great.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so there's that. Great. We'll see about that. All right, moving on down. So can we, I think this probably is answered in kind of our discussion a second ago, but can you clarify animation? It's only animation features movies that are struck. For example, a Disney animated show is not struck.
Yes.
This is where it gets complicated, and this is where we always want to say, if you're confused, call the union. If that Disney animated show is for network, then it's struck. If that Disney animated show is going to Disney Plus as a streamer, then it's new media.
Great. And we're going to jump back. Alexis, is it your question about the DC characters not affiliated with WB? If you can just drop that in the chat, Alexis, if that was your question, because I think we struck a question before it got answered. I believe that's the question. Yeah. Okay. So, is there an unpaid indie audio drama that uses DC characters? It's not affiliated with the WB. Is that something that can be, is the project itself in the clear? Unpaid indie audio drama.
So the important part there is audio drama, right? So podcast, scripted dramatic podcast. Am I correct in assuming that?
Alexa.
I'm going straight.
Cool. I believe so. Yes. Alexa said yes. Yep.
We have two podcast agreements. We have the main podcast agreement and the micro podcast agreement, and neither of those are struck.
Great. So that should be clear for you then, Alexis. Great.
All in the clear.
Awesome. Again, down. Okay. I think this was kind of asked earlier. Are there any new red flags that non-union actors should be on the lookout for in castings, auditions, so that we don't engage in work that violates the strike? if you have I guess, I don't know if there are any specific red flags. I mean, if it's something that you look at and go, wow, this seems like it should have been under a bigger, different contract, and potentially that is something. And then you can ask. You just kind of have to ask, I think, is really what it comes down to, right, Zeke? So Zeke doesn't get hit crossing the street there. All right.
So their attempts to swing things under other contracts will be caught by the contracts at the union. If a project has a union contract number, it is approved under whatever contract that contract number has been given by the union. So they're not going to be able to sneak it in if you ask them what, to show you the union project number.
Great. And then as far as the non-union stuff, you're just going to have to really look at those auditions and see if it's something that would have been union prior and is now going non-union. This was kind of what Karin had mentioned earlier, right, Karin? Of like looking at.
And I think, like logically, we can assume that the projects that were union that now they're going to stop work because of the strike, they're not going to be recasting those with non-union actors this week or even next week or probably in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks. It's when we're talking about September, October, November, if this strike continues, that's when those auditions are going to start coming to the non-union actors and looking like, oh, well, maybe this is a new project that has never been under a contract before. Look at who is producing it. See if they are an AMPTP member. If you have that information, ask questions of your agents, ask questions of SAG-AFTRA, and figure out whether or not you should audition for that based on those things. But I would assume that the things that have been in process are not going to suddenly switch non-union today. But depending on how long the strike lasts, that's when we might see things start to turn non-union down the line.
Cool. All right, moving on down. This should be on the picket list on the website, but is there going to be a picket at San Diego Comic-Con? You'd have to check the list. Oh, there's Zeke's hopping on a bus with everybody. Look at that. So you're gonna have to check and see. Oh, well, look at that. Look who that is. That was Fran. That was Fran and Duncan just walking on by.
Party bus.
Party bus. Yep. So Zeke, we'll answer as much as we can if you need to take a little break and not answer some of these things. So
I'm good.
Awesome.
And Katie Lee says, don't underestimate the recasting process. Yes, that's also true. Thank you.
And Brian says, thank you, Fran. I gotta, that's the first time I'm a SAG-AFTRA member, but I haven't seen Fran speak much. And I gotta say, yes, thank you, Fran, for yesterday's press conference was
she was great.
Awesome. That was awesome. So Zeke, if you want to yell thank you on behalf of 200
voice actors, say thank you, Fran.
Thank you, Fran. All right, moving on down. So Pickett, they try to recast to intimidate. Yeah, so that's from Katie as well. So moving on down, union video games. Video games are not under this contract. So under
fine.
So union video games are still moving along, still working. That is still in progress. Can you please go? I'm sorry. Yep.
Yeah, narration. Can you please go over for all of us narration? So basically, you do not want to be working on feature films or network TV with an AMPTP producing partner, right? So if it's narration, if it's corporate narration, you're totally fine. If it's podcast narration or audiobook narration, you're totally fine. If it's even cable narration for a cable service, you are fine. If it's a feature film, if you are asked to be Morgan Freeman in a feature film, that's probably not fine narrating. I mean, so just keep that in mind. It's really TV and film. That's what we're looking at. Everything else is okay.
Cool. So scratching that out, moving on down. So San Diego Comic-Con. So we can attend and do signings for our famous characters as long as they are under unstruck contracts.
Correct.
Yes. Yes. Just simple. Yes, an answer. Okay. Anonymous. So does promotion include sharing that you have worked on something tied with an AMPTP entity, i.e. sharing on your portfolio or your website or social media?
Yes.
So you cannot do that, or you can do that. Is that yes, you can do that, or no, you can? Yes, you can. It is struck.
It is struck.
Okay, great. It is struck. So you cannot say you can't put it on your website, because in this case, what we would use is that promotion could make money for that AMPTP production.
Correct.
By promoting it. Okay, great.
Yeah. Hey,
yes.
Tim, this also is kind of the weird edges that is best to seek out counsel from the union.
Great.
Many of the AMPTP members own video game companies, video game production studios, development studios, and when you're given the guidance on what to do and what not to do, sometimes there are these areas, well, wait a minute, should I do it for this company because don't they own such and such? So it's always a good idea to check to be sure, especially if it's work under a contract that isn't struck. And it's also a personal choice. I mean, there are some people that are like, oh, I don't want to do work for Amazon. I don't want to do work for one of their I don't even want to buy products from Amazon. And that's a discussion that people have all the time in terms of, what's appropriate in terms of your actions versus what can actually support the parts of the company that aren't being, uncooperative with us. So just be careful about that.
And that's a question that you would then email to the email address, the SAG-AFTRA strike email, which is it's in the Google Doc, SAG-AFTRA_STRIKE@SAG-AFTRA.org. That's a question you would ask of that. That would be the quickest way to answer that question, right, David and Zeke?
Yeah, the second quickest would be to go pick it with Zeke and ask him while you're walking.
Right, yeah, go out and pick it. Yeah, just walk out and find Zeke and ask him while you're on the picket line. Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you, dude. Moving on to the next one. More people are coming back in. All right. Is audio description included? Audio description is now. That's a good question. Zeke, what do we got for this? This is actually an interesting question.
Okay, this is not going to make this easier. The only current union contract for audio description is what's called the WGBH contract, which is with a broadcast station in Boston. The union claims jurisdiction over audio description. We are actively trying to get audio description covered under this contract. It is something that is contested right now because they 100% don't want to cover it. So that's a little bit tricky right now, to be honest. I don't know what the answer is to that. And I say that having had the discussion directly with the National Executive Director of the union and the lead lawyer. So Duncan Crabtree Ireland and Ray Rodriguez and I have sat with our PWD representatives in the negotiating room and said, what is this right now? Because we're actively trying to cover it. That's a horrible non-answer, but that's kind of where we sit.
PWD is what?
Performers with disabilities.
Gotcha. Okay, great. Yeah, I've been kind of involved in the audio description stuff as well, and it's not under, there's not an audio description contract, union contract currently. So okay, so
other than the WGBH one.
Right, and then that one, correct? Yes. David had answered this in the chat. Commercials contract is not struck. You can do commercials, and it doesn't matter what network that commercial airs on. You can still do commercials.
Correct.
Great. Audio description, that's covered. Moving on down.
I'll do you one better on that one, because there's a wrinkle that came up that we had to discuss. Say you were Brie Larson and you were doing a car commercial, but you were also doing that car commercial as a tie-in with your Marvel character. That is done under the commercials contract, and therefore it is not struck.
Interesting. Okay.
Also, if the commercial that you're doing is used as a promo within a show, like America's Got Talent, if you're doing a Kia commercial or if you're in a Kia commercial, same issue. It's again, it's what we're striking over. It's this confusion and this overlap and these gray areas that need clarification, and our partners at AMPTP are hell-bent to keep it as obfuscated as they possibly can.
Yep. All right. So follow up to Laura's question. Okay, well, here we go. So Brie cannot promote her show, but she can act as her character in a commercial.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Follow up to Laura's question. So does that mean no working on Disney TV, film, or streaming or apps, but Nickelodeon is okay? Or are we just
Ooh, that's difficult to unpack. Nickelodeon is okay. There's a difference between Disney Network and Disney streaming and Disney apps.
So you again find what contract that is under, and if it is a struck contract, you do not work on it. If it is not a struck contract, you can work on it.
Correct.
Okay, great. And are we just talking about, or just talking about past shows? I think
we're talking about current shows being filmed, shows coming out in the future, and anything done in the past under an AMPTP company.
Great. Okay. Melissa, hopefully you can find the strike link. If you found that, there's a picket information on where the picket lines in my town, Phoenix. I'm not union, but hope to join soon. I believe that's on that picket link, and if not, then we'll see if we can find specifics on that. Is the SPA struck? What is the SPA?
Short project agreement, no.
Great, not struck. Oh, there we go. Okay, so what about, I did see an answer to this. Somebody had posted this earlier on social media. What about canceling streamers? Is there a call for that? Are we going to try and, are we going to be canceling all of our subscriptions to all of us?
There is no call for that right now.
Great. Okay. Evan, kind of in line with earlier, is there anything we should ask of or expect from our talent agents to help ensure that what we receive for auditions align with the strike?
Make it clear that you are not looking to scab and break the strike rules, and they should be looking after you. Like I said, the union has had this conversation with agents, and we will continue to have this conversation with agents so that there is no mistake.
And I'm guessing I've heard this from some agents as well. Their responsibility is to make sure to give you the opportunities, and it is your responsibility as an actor to turn them those opportunities if you do not agree with it. So there is a very real possibility that some agents will send you everything, including struck jobs, and that you yourself will have to turn that down from your side of things.
Hey, Tim.
Yes, sir.
For those of you that are here and have been wondering what you can talk to your agent about these days, or have been avoiding a conversation with your agent, or wondering why your agent hasn't told you that they've dropped you because they haven't talked to you in 5 months or whatever, now's a great opportunity to have a conversation with them that clarifies your position, that clarifies their position, and that lets them know that you are a professional and are concerned about this. Reach out, make sure they understand where you stand on this.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, moving on down. Okay, so we answered that. I think this next one, Casey, I think this kind of answered goes into canceling those. So somebody referenced this online, that it would take really a global movement to have any impact on the streamers just from us canceling our subscriptions. That a few thousand or even 100,000 or whatever probably wouldn't make a very big dent in that. So there hasn't been a call for that from the union, and logistically that it would take a very, very, very large global movement in order to make any dent in that, which shows you how much profit there is in there, obviously, potentially. Okay. Let's see. Is a paid person at a time? So yeah, Eric, he dropped us in the chat. If you don't have an agent at this time, does it pay to approach them at this time or in coming months? Meaning, is now a good time to try and approach an agent? I mean, for all the work that's not struck, I don't see any reason why you couldn't continue to still reach out to agents and look for representation. You just need to be clear on your support or what it is that you're going to work on when you do that. But there's lots of work, as we've said, that's still out there that agents are still going to be casting for, that are still going to be doing that. So all right, let's see. What would you say this is a good time to do our own independent films that you write, produce, and act in? I mean, I'd say it's always a good time to do your own independent film, create your own content, be your own creator, take that into your, you have the power to do that at any time. Is now a good time to do that? I don't know exactly what that, what exactly would constitute being a good time, or what benefit you would get from it now versus doing it at some other time. Any thought on that, Zeke or David? Or
there might be a slew of actors that currently do a lot of
Oh, yeah.
television and film that aren't working on anything
There you
right
go.
now and might be
There
looking
you
for passion projects.
Yeah, there we go. And yeah, Kia put a good comment in the chat there. It's not nearly as effective as withholding labor. So just canceling a subscription is not as effective as withholding labor or not going to Disneyland. Okay.
And bear in mind, it's a as in the military we say a force multiplier, and what that means is it helps if we are helping indies by giving them our labor, and we're showing that labor has worth. It is leverage to push the big major companies back to the table because they're losing out on the labor that we're giving to the indies.
Yeah, gotcha.
In terms of the product stuff,
yeah,
it's one thing that we have control over, and it feels good. I'm not gonna watch that. Blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't really make that much difference, as Kia said, not nearly as much as the very visible, very potent picketing and labor withholding that is really the core of this.
Yep, awesome. Maurice, I think this was kind of answer. Will my agent provide clarity on what to audition for or not to? Do you think they will hold off on sending the auditions out instead? It's going to vary by agents. I think I was non-union in 2000 on that strike, around that time, and I wasn't very well versed on this, but I saw a lot of auditions come through from different agents. So it's hard to tell what they're going to do, what each agent will do, what regional agent will do, what larger agents will do. So you as yourself need to make sure that you're versed in this on what these contracts are that they're sending you. What is this audition that I'm getting? So, yes, I can work on it, which is important. I think it's important for us to know what we can work on, because as Zeke said earlier, we want to make sure we continue to work on what we can work on. The union supports us working. They're not asking for other contracts to be struck in solidarity so that you stop working on other contracts. It's this particular contract you're working on. So work all the other contracts you can, get those jobs. But I don't know that our agent very specifically is going to send you an audition that says this is a struck contract. Maybe some will, some may potentially will, or they may just not send them to you altogether. But to say that we're really going to know what an agent is going to do, we just don't know. It's going to vary by agent, by region, by market, by their honestly their position on this as well. So actually, here's a great question. It's not a crime to audition, but you don't want to accept struck work, correct? So here's a good question. So unless you have to cross the line to get to the audition or a callback, how does that affect this? If you have an audition or a callback for a project that is not struck under a contract that is not struck, what does that mean? Is there any issue crossing the picket line for that?
So let me, words are important here. It's never a crime to audition. It is a violation of the strike order to audition for an AMPTP project.
Okay, great.
You can go to work at Warner Brothers if you have a video game session. You can go into a callback at Disney if you have a callback. That's why in a picketing situation, you have picketed gates, you have neutral gates, and you have illegal picket locations. And so if you are called in to a studio to work or to audition, they should give you explicit directions. They're required to give you explicit directions to get you to the neutral gate.
Great. Okay. So yes, she didn't mean a literal crime, but that was what it said in there. So I'm.
But Tim, this is Kara.
Yes, Kara. Yeah.
The initial thing says it's not a crime to audition, but you don't want to accept struck work. So that indicates they are auditioning for struck work.
Gotcha.
Correct. You cannot audition for struck work.
No, but you can audition for non-struck work, and then if you accept that work, then you can, cross it. Because this is one of the questions that came up during the when the WGA strike started was how I have to go to work. I'm booked on a job that is going to take me through down to where the WGA is striking. I know there was talk about that, how you could access that work to continue working. All right. Okay, so back to trailers and promos. So oftentimes there are commercials that are actually cross-promoting products and films but are in a commercial contract. Is that part of the strike, even though it's not technically a trailer but is promoting a movie? If it's
talking about like if you have Marvel like like buy some kicks now with Marvel superheroes on the box. Is that what we're talking about?
No, specific, that was me asking that question. I mean, specific promoting the movie. Like they'll use a car and they'll say specifically, go see the movie because this car is in that movie kind of thing. And they still say like the date the movie is opening and everything.
It is a weird loophole. They are promoting using a commercial, but if the commercial is shot under the commercial's contract, it is not struck. What the reason that promotion is struck is because promotion is explicitly covered in the codified basic agreement. So they're going to do a lot of getting around this by signing people to commercials. But honestly, that is not struck work, and you can and should do that.
Great.
I want to make sure people heard what he just said.
Go for it. Yeah.
You can and should do that. Again, it's kind of weird, but nobody's looking to prevent you from making money on other contracts. And it's also supporting the actual letter and flavor of our strike agreements and our strike policies. So please make sure that you ask.
And that really is the biggest thing is ask. There are resources. SAG-AFTRA's got a huge amount of resources. NAVA will as well to try and help clarify this. We'll also, as you know, if documents need to be clarified or things need to be clarified, we will do that ourselves to help clarify that. So here's okay. So some of the so here's a good question. So can you speak to some of the most egregious things the AMPTP wanted? What were some of the biggest disputes that led us to this point of this? I know that, you know, AI background scanning with actors yesterday was a big deal. Looks like Zeke is right in the middle of things. But we can come back to that question, Zeke. We'll come back to that question. So you can give us that. No picketing on weekends. That's probably what we're seeing on the web, on the site. I would assume the schedule shows no picketing on weekends. So
we're limiting the hours for picketing right now for safety, for one thing. Like, we're not going to picket all day because of the heat out here, and we want to be able to focus the picketing and get large numbers out when we can.
Right. And then so let's see where Courtney asked a question. It looks like it disappeared, but I think Courtney, in response to your question, I lost it. Where'd it go? Courtney, can you drop your question in the chat again? I lost it or disappeared.
And what was the one I missed when I fell in the crush there?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll come back to that. Co-promo. Okay, so Courtney, so it depends on what the contract is, Courtney. I guess it depends on, even if it is promoting an AMPTP project, if it's okay to be under the other contract, then you can work on that. So that's cross Kleenex and the Fast and 20 that plays in theaters. If it's in theaters, would it be under a commercial contract or would it be under a struck contract? Hey, is that Ben? Is that Ben Pronsky? We can't hear you. I don't know if you're saying something.
How about now?
There we go.
Tim.
Yes. Hey, it's Ben Pronsky. What's happening, Ben? How are you?
What's up?
Hey, how are
I
ya?
assume it's Ben. I can't tell. Yeah, it's Ben.
I came out with coolers full of ice water and some hot dogs to grill for everybody.
Awesome.
So
Amazing.
I'm gonna start handing out hot dogs.
Sweet.
Rock and roll.
So I think Courtney, I think can you clarify your question? Put that in the chat or put it on the put in the Google Doc if you can, on that with some specific detail in there so we can try and answer that. Zeke, going back to this from Kevin's question, what were some of the most egregious things the AMPTP wanted? What are the biggest things at dispute in the negotiations? What led to this? That's actually a really good question. Yeah.
Okay. A lot of the stuff is stuff that we probably should not talk about because we don't want to affect the fact that we are going to go back in the room and negotiate with them. But I will tell you this, because our national executive director said it. So we are negotiating over the use of AI technology. And the current proposal that they have laid on the table in front of us states that they want to have the right to scan an individual actor and use AI technology to reproduce them as background for the payment of 1 day's work, $187. And for that, they want the right to use that person's scan in perpetuity throughout the universe across any project forever. Meaning the end of background as a service. That's the kind of shit that we're dealing with. When it comes to general wage increases, we all know that inflation was 8% last year. They would like us to take a pay raise that is less than that. So they would like us to make less money now than we were making in 2020. And because it's the 3-year term of a contract, that means we would make less money in 2026 in real dollars than we were making in 2020. And they're telling us it's unreasonable to ask that, while the CEO of Disney just signed a new contract for $27 million with a profit sharing bonus of up to 500% of his salary. So I think the profit is there.
Yes. Yes, yes. And that was one of the things people are, people are talking about the, how much all the CEOs are making. All right, let's see. No, picking up because we got that one. So a lot of auditions for Netflix dubs. Dubbing is okay because it is under a different contract, even if it is under, even if it is for Netflix, because we're not striking all of Netflix, we're striking a contract. Correct? Yes. Okay, great. All right, so that answers. Looks like somebody's having problems with the picket sites. All right. Okay, so let's check with. So Courtney's got that up there. But sorry, loop groups would be a no. Loop groups are no. Loop groups you can't do. So it's under that contract. So Courtney's asking. So Kleenex trusted.
You can do a loop group for a video game.
For a video game. Okay, great.
And for independent stuff. I mean,
Great.
loop groups in general.
Yes.
Are not, loop groups for AMPTP projects. No. But
Yep.
don't cast the whole net around loop groups as though that's all they do.
Look at your contract and find out what the project is. Read that contract. Okay. Courtney's Kleenex trusted. So this is a question about a commercial. It's called a co-promo. It's an ad and it's a promo for a movie. It would depend on what contract that it's under. You would have to see what that contract falls under. Would you know what a co-promo would fall under, Zeke, offhand at all, or do you know?
Co-promo is not a defined term within our contract. So the only way to know if they're calling it a co-promo is to ask what agreement it is signed under.
I think that was just a phrase that I think she was trying to clarify what she was saying. It matters if it's a pre-roll commercial or if it's an actual trailer or promo.
Gotcha.
And that's what you need.
So if it was a pre-roll commercial, it would be done under the commercial's contract. If it was a trailer or promo, the performer agreement that they would hand you would be the agreement from the codified basic agreement. You say no to that. But if the performer agreement that they hand you is from the commercial's agreement, thumbs up. Cleared hot.
Great. Okay. Radio. We can audition for radio. Can we audition for radio?
Yes.
Yes. That's
Yep.
Yep. Okay.
Please go work on radio.
Yes, please go work on radio. From the studio side, how do we verify that we don't accept a struck ADR looping project without knowing what contract they fall under? We'll ask. You just got to ask. You got to ask the union rep. Ask the signatory rep, whoever that is, and we'll see what. I guess that's
now. Yeah. If you audition on accident because they don't tell you, and the contract shows up and it's struck work, you should turn that down. No one's going to come after you for auditioning because you didn't understand.
Right. This is specifically from the studio side. So studio side, as far as taking or working on those struck contracts, you're going to have to ask the SAG-AFTRA rep or signatory rep to find out what that contract is if you have that connection, Samantha. And then do Canadian union productions fall under the strike as well?
No.
Nope. Great. Yes, know your contracts, know what you're working under exactly, which has kind of become, especially with the rise of some of the AI clauses that we've seen in the last 6 months or so, it's even more important to make sure that you're reading your contracts and know what is in there. There's certain things in these contracts that just shouldn't be in there, because even if it's a SAG-AFTRA contract, it's in the contract without SAG-AFTRA's knowledge, sometimes as an amendment or an addendum to that contract. Let's see. So studio said, okay. So hopefully, Samantha, that I know it wasn't really a very clear, I don't know if it was a very clear answer for you or a definitive answer. So what do we do? Okay, so there we go. So what do we do if reps don't contact us back in a timely manner? Yes. So from a studio side, somebody comes in to book a job. They want to bring in that studio. They want to book your studio for that stuff. is there an emergency number that somebody can reach? Is there a way to reach somebody urgently if needed to get answer to these questions, Zeke or David?
Well, again, the intent behind putting so much staff behind that email is that you should get a response really, really quickly.
Okay.
If you're not getting that response really, really quickly, everybody knows where I am on Instagram. I will try to push whatever I can.
Yep. Great.
Just so you know, Tim, I got about 5 minutes left on battery on my phone.
Okay, no problem. If you drop out, we've got there's still quite a bit left here, but we can try and answer this.
Well,
so
let me be clear.
Yep.
This is not the last time I will be here. I'm going to do this as regularly as I can around negotiating, around striking, around everything else that is going on in life. So if your question is not answered today, we will be back.
Yep. And we'll keep this. This is why we'll keep this document so we can get answer as well.
Somebody head to the picket lines with external batteries.
Yeah, someone take
just take a box of batteries.
Yep.
Plug it in.
Someone find logos for the strike. We're gonna SAG-AFTRA has it's actually, I believe it's all on the SAG-AFTRA strike website that you can just download all the graphics on there. They're pretty solid. And that you should be able to find that there as well. If you'd like to get it from the NAVA side, we have that as well on the NAVA. It's not on the NAVA website yet, but we'll try and get that up today. We can only do so many things at one time. We try. What do we do? Okay, so reps. So Samantha, if you want to talk about this more, because I think you and I are kind of in similar situations here with it from the studio side, so we can talk more about this and maybe we can find a better, like a more streamlined solution to that, or a better way for both of us to help each other out on that. Since folks like Nickelodeon have their own contracts, is there a comprehensive list of specific struck company? Okay, so I think this is not about the company itself. It's about the contract that company is using for that project, as we said earlier. So some Netflix things you can work on, some you can't. Some Disney things you can work on, some you can't. So it's not about the company. It is about the contract. Yes.
The contract that you sign as a performer will clearly state on it what agreement you are working under. And we are striking the television, theatrical, codified basic agreements and the sub-agreements of that are shown on the strike order. So when you're signing to do your work, just make sure you read what contract you're working under.
Let's see. Is there a database for various SAG-AFTRA contracts? Yes, there is. I will put it in everything that, so there's nothing here that is on the SAG-AFTRA website that you can't just access. I'm going to put it in the website right now. I'll just drop this in the chat. Actually, no, I'll put it in the I'm going to put it in the Google Doc right there, and I will drop it in the Google chat. All of this is publicly, it has been available. I look at it frequently. You can go to this page. You can find every contract. You can find older versions of these contracts. Looks like we may have lost Zeke over there. We'll see if he's gone.
He might be gone.
So
we'll do our best. Oh, he's still there.
There he is. So
someone bring this man a battery. No, it's fine. Zeke has other things to. He's been with us for an hour and a half.
Yep, that he is. Outside in the sun. Okay, so let's see. Can you clarify dubbing anime contracts? Dubbing anime is a different contract. So
dubbing is a different contract too. It's
dubbing
fine.
is a different contract.
Good. Do it.
Yep. All right.
You
I
make
tried
that $125 or however much it is.
Yep. 132.
Let's get that number up.
Casey, I clicked the link and it doesn't. It takes me to a content is not available, so I don't know if that's accurate or not. Sarah, where do we purchase merch like hats, t-shirts, etc. for strike, preferably where it goes towards a cause? Karen, where did you have vocation stuff made?
Yeah, we can do a Zazzle. If you want NAVA shirts and things for the strike, we can do that. NAVA supports SAG-AFTRA.
Yep, we can do that.
We can do that. And we
okay, here's this is actually a great question. And I think the answer is, well, we'll see what the answer is. This should be pretty hopefully clarified. Can union workers do non-union work while striking?
Oh.
No. You shouldn't do non-union work even when you're not striking.
Yes.
Under that. So but this is where knowing what your contracts are to know what would be considered under that, because not every job anyway. Know your contracts, read your contracts, know what the job you're doing is, and make sure that you know that it's something that is something you should or should not be working Okay, so just a great one. Is there a stationary picket spot for any of the various spots for people who can't walk long distances? For example, somebody who uses a cane or a walker.
Yes,
Cool. Yes, there is. Great.
you can pick a gate. I've been at gate 3 at Warner Brothers all day.
And you can stay there stationary and people will be there. Great.
And I have friends here on the negotiating committee who are performers with disabilities who have limited movement. So they are here.
Great. SAG eligible and have a TV animated series coming out this summer, and I can't talk or promote it, correct? If it is under a struck contract, that would be correct.
Yeah, if it's new media or something like that, you can absolutely promote it.
Okay.
It's only if it's network, correct? So like if it is a TV animated series on ABC, for example.
If you're on The Simpsons, if you're on
Family Guy.
what Karin said.
Yeah.
It's only if it's network. It's not if it's cable and so yes.
Great.
You're okay.
Can you auditions for commercials and radio? Yeah, we've covered this. That should be, I think has it been answered very clearly. Yes, if it's under the commercial contract, and radio, yes, as well. You're fine to audition and work on those. Trailer for feature film, trailer for new media series and movies, trailer for cable shows. That is all struck. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. And I realize you can't answer this, but do our agents understand all of this? As Zeke said, yes, there's a meeting with 500 agents this morning or yesterday to be in.
It was last week. It was at least
okay.
3. It was at last 300 last week.
300. Okay, great.
But they're going to do it some more.
Great. Live action dubbing for Netflix is generally all right. Different contract. Yes, not a struck contract, even though it is a company that would be considered it is an AMPTP company. That contract is okay. So this is where we have to know what those contracts are, and what they fall under. How would you suggest, maybe Karin, you can answer this one. Repin you. I did not pin you. I unpinned
Hello.
you.
I'll talk
right.
and then I'll be green.
Yes.
How would you
suggest
navigate pay-to-play platforms with the strike? Okay, so most of the work that's on pay-to-play sites does not fall under this stuff. I have honestly never, ever in my life seen any kind of feature film audition for anything on any of the pay-to-play sites ever. I also have not really seen any movie trailers there or animated series on TV networks. I think that almost every single thing that's on there you can probably do. If there is a question about anything, ask. You can email SAG-AFTRA, you can ask all kinds of people. But when in doubt, you will always have, probably 50 auditions tomorrow. So maybe when in doubt, just err on the side of caution. But mostly everything on pay-to-pay platforms was not going to be under this contract anyway.
Just be aware, you may start to see it if this goes on for a month or
Could
two.
be.
Yep. All right. Call to the last question. Is there a NAVA meetup at picket lines? Not something we've currently organized.
If we do, we will let you know, and we will leave time for your t-shirts to arrive in the mail.
Yep. As well. All right. So there's a lot of info we've had here. This has been recorded. Zeke will be back with more of this. I'm going to leave this Google Doc live. If you would like to add more questions to there, then I think that's fine. I'll just leave that doc open. If you want to ask questions on there, we'll try and answer those. I think that is it for anybody who's interested. We are doing a VO legal symposium this afternoon at 4 p.m.
/ 7 p.m. depending on where you are. 4 p.m. Pacific.
Yep. Are we allowed to share the replay? People who didn't do the Eventbrite, we will put it on the NAVA website, and then people will be able to see it from there. And
I'm going to post the legal symposium in the chat as well so that people can see it.
And we can do that. And then if you would like to know more, there is a San Diego Comic-Con panel with myself, Lindsay Rousseau, Zeke, Sissy Jones, and Ashley Birch, talking about AI from the performer's perspective. We're going to be there on Saturday morning, talking about the AI specifically, which, as we know, is a huge part of the negotiations. Yes, Zeke, stay cool. Everybody get some. Yeah, I saw he had a spray. He was getting himself cooled down there. So awesome, everybody. We'll let everybody go and do your thing. This is not the last time we will be seeing you all. Thank you for the 220 who showed up today.